Oh, from New York, you are listening to Extratime, Club and Country, driven by Continental Tire from the AT&T 5G Virtual Studios. I'm Andrew Wiebe with my partners in soccer, Calen Carr, Matt Doyle, depending on your perspective, David Goss, or an ice cream cone. What's up, boys? It's late night. We got some drinks poured. Hopefully you're watching us live. If you're not, you listen to the podcast. Just so you know, we are doing this at the very, very end of a massive result in Concacaf. Echoes heard around the world. Canada go to Azteca and get a 1-1 draw that could have been more. Earlier in the night, the U.S., of course, 2-0 winners. Choo-choo! The hype train keeps rolling on. Even Greg Berhalter is saying he's on the train. Ricardo Pepi, 2 more goals. 2 more. You cannot stop this, man. Now, we're going to talk about all of it. We're going to get a little week preview for MLS Week 30. Only 4 games this weekend, so we're going to focus on the international game. But first, guys, the news that we've all been waiting for. The birthday we've all been waiting for. Continental Tire, 150 years, baby. Continental Tire, back for the 13th year of partnership with MLS and with Extratime, driven, of course, only by Continental. We're punchy. I have a party popper. I'm in an enclosed basement. Let's see how this works out for us. All right. Yes, it was fine. It was fine. The 0.2 grams of gunpowder or less in this party popper worked out well for me. Look, Continental Tire. Exactly, yes. Yeah, just perfect amount of gunpowder.
Kansas City, those are legal.
Everything is
legal
in Kansas
City. Yeah, what isn't legal in Kansas City? I had another party popper, but for my own safety, apparently Mindy took it away. Look, we are so thankful before we dive into this to Continental Tire, the support that they've given us for many, many years now. It gives us the opportunity to, twice a week, sometimes more, get together with what amount to some of our best friends in the world, ourselves, also with all of you out there listening, and talk about soccer. And BS, and sometimes not talk about soccer. Maybe we're talking about hummus, or whether or not one of us is a father, or cats on screen, or whatever else it may be. It is my favorite. Yes, my favorite time of the week. Look, it's a great partnership. It's a perfect partnership. Continental's about one thing, which is connecting with fans. We're about that exact same thing, and we also love the Kick Childhood Cancer initiative that they've supported for many years now. So we're really excited that this continues. We're excited to be a part of this with Continental Tire. So congratulations to Continental on everything you do for being the official tire of Major League Soccer and, of course, the official tire of Extratime. All right, let's get into it, guys. You ready?
Wiebe, didn't you mention they're donating to the supporters groups too?
Oh,
that sounds cool too.
See, that's well done. Take over the hosting role. $150K. Yeah, to the supporters groups. So a nice chunk of change going out to the people that drive all this, that make it all worthwhile.
Can I get into the soccer thing with this?
Sure.
And shout out to Ivis who put this up. Canada is the first team ever in the final round of World Cup qualifying to take a point both at Mexico and the U.S. That is what we are doing now. History is made.
Make sure I got those red ones here.
Who gave Wiebe a vuvuzela? This is not good.
I promise that is probably the last time I will use those.
Well, that's
Dave, you're a resident Canadian here. How'd you feel throughout this game? How'd you feel at the end?
So I think they came out a little tentative, and I thought it was questionable the way John Herdman set up along the back line. It was more of a 4-man back line with Richie Larea playing as a genuine left back, and the spacing was the issue on that first goal. And then Canada just grew. And you look at a team playing at the Azteca where it felt by the end like they could be the team that was going to win it. And they grew throughout the first half. And I don't think I've ever seen Mexico sit back at home that way and just letting Canada play because they didn't want to leave any gaps behind them because they couldn't handle Tejan and Fonzie running at them one-on-one. They didn't want to let Jonathan David into space. And then Canada recognized that and was able to create opportunities still. And then they get the goal. And it was really the first time Fonzie came in field like that. Off the left wing, he comes into pretty much zone 14, and he's able to get lost because no one's tracking him there. And Osorio reads it, and he makes the run off him. And listen, we all talk about all these players a lot. We go out, we cover all these players. I think Calen did a special about Brampton and Jonathan Osorio, but like it feels like your own child growing up and graduating college. You're watching Jonathan Osorio.
Were you wiping tears? Wiping
score
tears,
a goal.
Honey,
And
where's
it's
my
like-
handkerchief?
It's unbelievable. And then from there, for the men to play the way they did and to hit the post and hit the crossbar and have chances and Memo made one great save or reaction, whatever it was. But Canada, I think the one thing I take away from this is the confidence they played with. The attitude that they should win this game, that they could play the soccer they wanted to play in this environment. All of that is new. And it's a historic point in history performance.
Well, it was new for Oso as far as going and doing it in the Azteca with Canada, but we've seen what he does in the Concacaf Champions League down in Mexico, and we've sort especially on this show, we've sort of celebrated kind of the growth of that tournament and the importance of it, and I think we've also mentioned just how important it is as a development tool and how revealing it can be as far as how ready you are for these types of environments, and we've sort of wondered what that could mean for the U.S. men's national team, but also for Canada as well. You see Osorio, where he's I think he won the Golden Boot that year that or I think he shared the Golden Boot maybe that year that Toronto went to the final. Did he? Okay.
No, give him the win. Come on. He held the trophy up at the final. Good enough.
But you never, he's never going to be overawed. And I think when you look at the progression of this team, and you mentioned kind of that graduation moment, we've seen them kind of grow in spurts or in moments. And I think this group has been together for both the Nations League and the Gold Cup. We saw the performance against Mexico where, yes, they didn't end up winning it in the Gold Cup semi, but they went toe-to-toe, didn't back down. Tejan had that beautiful goal. And I think even when you watch tonight, it wasn't where, Alphonso Davies had a worldie of a game or Tejan just went off or even Canada played necessarily to their best. Like they didn't even necessarily play to their best tonight. But the thing that I think was consistent for them and that we saw throughout the summer, and I think that's kind of been building to this, is that kind of competitiveness, that togetherness, that spirit that they have as a group, and that kind of lack of fear. And they showed it against the U.S. In World Cup qualifying, and they showed it again tonight against Mexico, and deserved points. And I think they could have come away from more. And I think that's kind of like the warning shot to say that now this time things might actually be different for Canada. That said, there's going to be a lot of pressure on Mexico. If you think about it from that perspective, the media, just having to rescue a point.
No, we're not saying Tata out. We're just wondering.
Last one. And then this one, there's going to be a big reaction from Mexican media as well, too, which I guess from a U.S. men's national team perspective is probably a good thing.
So and in our pregame Canada national team perspective, they're trying to win the region, baby.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's sort of been it's only been 4 games here, but it's shaken out. U.S. on top, +5 goal differential, 8 points, same as Mexico. Canada right behind with 6. They have a positive goal differential. And there's Panama. And of course, U.S. goes to Panama City on Sunday. We'll be covering that one really closely as well. But in the pregame Twitter spaces, we do that for the U.S. We did it for Canada as well. So tune into those. Those are on Matt Doyle's Twitter handle. We kind of wondered why John Herdman was putting out his first team. And this is that answer, right? Doyle, is that this was the next step for them. And if they're not going to try to do it now, then are they really playing toward their goals? I mean, there is a pragmatic aspect of it, but this justifies his decision in a big way.
It does, though. If they don't take 3 points next game, then all that justification is gone. The point in Mexico doesn't mean anything if you don't go home and take care of business. And this is what we've seen from Canada before, right? Like in 2019 in the Nations League, they whooped the U.S. at BMO Field in the first leg, and then they got smoked 4-1 in the second leg. They got too high after a good performance, and they weren't able to bottle it and sort of keep that with them and keep it level the next time out against the U.S. Well, the hope is that they will have learned from that just in terms of mentality. And I'm guessing they have. It's getting to the point where I'm not going to doubt John Herdman because he's pulled just about every correct lever thus far in qualifying. I mean, going with the 4-2-3-1 after being mostly a 3-5-2 or a 3-4-2-1 team for the past 6 months, I thought that was kind of crazy. but it worked. And as David said, Richie Larea was like a natural left back in this game, except he's right-footed, so he's playing inverted. He's going to come inside. That allowed Alphonso Davies to stay super wide and stretch out the entire Mexican back line. I mean, the poor right back was just having a nightmare, even considering what Davies could do, even with play was nowhere near him. So that ended up creating pockets of space underneath, and Canada was able to get into a rhythm. I mean, I think they finished below 50% possession, but the first half, they had 50% possession. They outshot Mexico, I think, 7-4. And this wasn't just like boom up a long ball and hope you win a second ball and, turn it into something. This was actually pretty methodical, pretty, precise build-up play turning into danger. And it was fun to watch, man. I thought... I mean, I didn't think Canada would be here. I didn't think they would be at this point. I thought it would take them a little bit longer, but Herdman deserves a lot of credit. The players deserve a lot of credit. They have been through so many bad results. Over the past 20 years, really, but just even over the past 5. A lot of these guys have taken it on the chin. I mean, think about the 2019 Gold Cup that lost to Haiti. So they have been at the very bottom. They have bottomed out, and they have sort of bounced back now, and they're playing at or above their talent. But it looks natural at them, and it looks good. And anytime you take a point at Mexico and a point at the U.S., you're doing a lot of things right.
By the way, in their last 5 trips to Azteca, it's 20-0 Mexico. 20-0. I mean, you're talking about bottoming out. I'm thinking of that game in Honduras in San Pedro Sula. Was it 7-1? A game they had to win?
It was 8-1. I thought it was 8-1.
Yeah, I mean, that
was
when you're debating the level of humiliation, that tells you about everything you need to know. And here Canada are toe-to-toe. And if Alphonso Davies finishes that, I don't know if you want to call it a sitter or not, but a prime opportunity, let's say.
It wasn't a sitter.
I didn't say. I said I don't know if you want to call it that.
The defender got a toe to it, so it did take a slight redirect before he... But we can all agree Jacob Schaffelberg buries that.
Exactly. By the way, Canada don't go home. Canada go to Kingston to take on Jamaica. And then they get Panama in the third game of this window at home.
Which is why this was awkward, and I still... I don't know yet that I agree with Doyle, and this was a historic performance and a historic game, but what's the need from this window? And with the points Panama took in Jamaica and the way Jamaica has performed throughout qualifying so far, I don't know that 3 points is a must there, but it's a possibility. And then they have to go home and beat Panama, and that's unquestionable. And right now losing to El Salvador in the 89th minute. So it seems like that might hang on. Panama had the best of anyone's first window, but now the U.S. goes to Panama. If the U.S. holds them to a draw, that's a must-win game for them as well. Whatever it is, Canada probably wants 4 more points out of this, if not 6. And so Richie Larea is suspended for the next game. Steven Vittoria is. They have no backup center forward unless Larin or Cavallini becomes healthy. So Jonathan David played 90 minutes at Azteca in altitude. 85 minutes. What does he look like over the next 2 games? I'm not saying Herdman was wrong in any way. This is unbelievable. This is amazing. And we talked about it before the game. I think there's something that he still has to do for this country in terms of the belief in this group and this team that's bigger than just getting points. But this is still a tough window that he now has to manage. And I think he has Daniil Henry that he can bring in for Vittoria, and then he probably plays Vittoria and Henry the third game. All those pieces, and with Larea, he could play Tejan at wing back. He could play Alistair Johnston out there. He could swap Adekube. He's got Zachary Broguiart, so he has options there. But it's just this key guys who played 90 minutes at altitude at Azteca. Now you travel to Jamaica, then you travel back to Toronto. It's not an easy window to sort of manage those guys.
But Gus, we talked about kind of Canada and the devastation they'd faced in the past. And, part of this is a psychological battle too. And so for a group to go to the Azteca and to be able to say, we took away a point, not in a friendly, not in the nations, not in these other tournaments, not in the Gold Cup. No disrespect to those tournaments, but in World Cup qualifying to go to the Azteca, I mean, that is a huge feat to do. And, you almost have to look at these windows, international windows, 3 games in a week as a mini tournament. And in any tournament play, the first match is super important. It's the most important of them to be able to get the group going. And yeah, you come out of it, and we sort of looked at the U.S. team, and we'll get to them later. But I appreciated the approach to the first match as this is, the match. This is the only match. We're not shifting things around. You have to be a little bit smart, and we saw Pepe come off a bit early or whatever it might be. But you still need to make sure that you're getting off to a good start and getting going, and especially for Canada, I think, with the mentality that we've seen from this group that Herdman has kind of fostered as far as like, we want to go after the big dogs. We want to change the perception. I think it was really important for them to get going. And the way Jamaica is playing right now, you have to trust that depth a little bit too, where if they have to make a change or they have to adjust a little bit when they play against Jamaica, that they still feel like they have enough quality to get a result on the road.
By the way, this wasn't some, like second choice El Tri here. This was Raul Jimenez back. This was Chucky. This was Tecatito. This was a good team.
I think the timing of that Osorio goal was huge too, as
right
far as that, because
yeah.
if it was just coming down and you're saying, okay, we're down 1-0 at halftime, I just felt it gave them a lot of life, and I think it started to ask some bigger questions and give some pressure to put on the Mexican side at home against this Canada team. So I think the timing of that goal was massive for Canada.
To your point, this is the best group Tata Martino has probably put out in 2 years.
Yeah.
Since Jimenez got hurt pre-COVID, right? And since then, Jimenez has been injured. You haven't had him. Chucky gets hurt to open up the Gold Cup. You haven't had Ache available to you in the last World Cup qualifying window. So this was the group. And for Mexico, the conversation has been, well, when Jimenez comes back, it'll be fine. We're just looking for a center forward. We're creating chances. We know that we can dominate midfield. We know we can press teams in this region. It's just who can finish the chances. But while we figure it out with Funes Mori and whoever else we play with, whenever Jimenez gets back, it'll be fine. And I thought Jimenez was good in this game, but they drew at home. And as much as we love Canada, Calen started out by saying the pressure on Mexico is going to be different. I don't think there's going to be a ton of people in Mexico saying, well, Jonathan Osorio is a good player. He's done it in CCL. I don't really think that's going to be the conversation on Azteca later today, but we could ask Jorge Campos, of course, our good friend now. And so I think there for Mexico, this is a huge moment in the region of like, this was kind of not easy for them in the first window, but it made sense. And it seemed like they were moving along, and now there's been a wrench thrown in there.
We got somebody in the YouTube. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say, look, I am kind of heartbroken still that Julian Araujo chose Mexico over the U.S., but you could see from this game exactly how much he would help Mexico. Like, I think the big issue that's happening with Mexico right now is their fullbacks. They get forward late, and when they do get forward, they're like paint by numbers in terms of the passes they can connect and in terms of how they can affect the game. And Julian Araujo is not the finished product by any means, but he's brave and he's skillful and he wants to get forward, but he still has the athleticism and the mentality to get back and defend. It would not shock me at all if he walks into that team next window and starts getting big minutes, because I think he's an upgrade. Honestly, I think he's an upgrade over what they have right now at right back.
The power of the MLS. Well, not quite homegrown, I guess, in Julian Araujo's case. But he's like, basically is a homegrown. We have somebody really trolling in the YouTube chat right now saying Tata to LAFC after all this is over. So we will see about that. Let's talk USA. Congratulations to Canada. They got another one coming up on Sunday. Obviously, we'll cover all that.
Are you guys done with the birthday stuff? Can I take this off?
Dude, I'm still wearing my pretty bow tie. Come on,
is it suffocating you? Because mine's kind of suffocating me.
Or no?
You can take it off, David. We won't tell.
Calen, you made it questionable for me, but
I did. I said pregame. You looked like an upside down snow cone. a hairy one at that.
God.
But anyways,
well,
you're doing great.
In all your nightmares tonight, you will think of that imagery. You will not be thinking of the U.S. national team at Q2 Stadium. Jamaica coming in. Jamaica with a single point. Jamaica leaves with a single point. The U.S. 2-0 winners. Ricardo Pepi, 2 goals. I mean, the hype train rolls on. 20 seconds in, there were calls for a red card. We can talk about that in just a little bit. But Doyle, let's just start with your kind of big picture thoughts after this game. We're a couple hours removed now. We did the Twitter Spaces afterwards, and we're pretty jovial. Are you still in that headspace? Where do you sit right now?
Yeah, I'm really encouraged. The thing that I wanted to see most was a simplified approach from Greg Berhalter in terms of playing a familiar, coherent formation and playing pretty much everybody in their correct positions. And he checked both of those boxes. And then at that point, it comes down to execution. And the execution wasn't great in the first half. I thought the U.S. did a good job of moving the ball into dangerous positions, though the final ball was really never there in the first half. The second half, though, was a dominant performance. And so I'm really encouraged. It wasn't a perfect performance, but like the first goal was an 18-year-old to a 20-year-old to an 18-year-old. The second goal was like a 20-year-old to a 22-year-old to a 24-year-old to a 20-year-old to an 18-year-old. No, like nobody on the field has more than.
They're going to be tested on this.
Yes, nobody on the field has. Look, think about how we just talked about Canada. How they've been through so many low points as a program, and even this group of players, for the most part, has experienced that themselves. Like the lowest point this U.S. group has experienced came a month ago against Canada. So they don't have those kinds of battle scars, and it's been a little bit of a learning process on like a very speedy learning process, and they're mostly coming through it looking good. And so I'm pretty happy with what happened tonight for the U.S. I don't think there's any reason to be anything other than that.
Yeah, Wiebe, I think sometimes we go around and we say, I think you asked the question of, what's the one word sort of reaction to the match? And the word that I was coming up with when I was thinking about it was mature, which is rare because I think this was maybe the youngest team that I think
second youngest.
Okay.
The youngest was last window.
Okay, I was going to say, I think they either broke their record or were just like behind.
Walker ruined it, basically. Walker Zimmerman came in and ruined it, essentially.
Yeah, who did quite well, and I thought brought a lot to the match. But I think, when I think across the board, as far as Pepi looked mature, I mean, there were times where I think he was kind of searching for the game in the first half and didn't find it, but still he didn't drop too far deep. He didn't lose his discipline.
There was no disconnect.
He stuck to what he was good at. Brendan Aronson continues to grow. I mean, you want to talk about maturation. I feel like in the last 4 months, we've seen him go leaps up and bounds to the point where when you don't have Christian Pulisic and you don't have Gio Reyna, I heard you guys talking on the Twitter Spaces, and I totally agreed with it beforehand, just that you felt confident that Brendan was going to find a moment in the game, or that he was capable of finding the moment, and probably that consistency where even when we talked about him in MLS, that was kind of, okay, how does he turn it into the final product? How does he do this? And you figured when he went to Europe that it might be a similar trajectory where he was dangerous and busy and playing, but maybe not finding that final product. But he's found it almost immediately in Europe, and he's translated that to the international stage as well, which is doubly impressive. And just even throughout, I mean, even when you look to Weston McKinney, I thought, there were a lot of eyes on him. I don't think he necessarily had his best match, but I would say it was mature. He looked composed. He didn't look like he was trying to right all of his wrongs in one match. And then Yunus Musa, 18 years old, another one. I felt like we talk a lot about verticality and how direct this team was going to be going into this one. Well, he showed you right there, just kind of on the goal to Serginho Dest and then over to Pepi, how much he can add to this team with the ball at his feet, where he can kind of really get going and break lines with the ball, because verticality isn't just with the ball, in behind. And same thing, it goes for Areola, where same thing. You were saying, oh, well, he's not really capable of tucking inside with the ball at his feet. He doesn't really need to. He just needs to make that run. It was a vertical run inside to open up a channel for somebody else. And he's a willing runner. You're never going to question that about him. So I thought overall, the game plan worked great. And it felt like a mature performance where even from the manager, he put players in a position to succeed. He asked guys to do things that were within their capabilities. He picked the right lineup. He made the right changes. And overall, I thought the U.S. were the better team.
Dave?
Yeah,
what do you say?
I think that it's a similar reaction. I don't think it was. Listen, they're not like Greg Berhalter's Columbus Crew at their prime, right? That's not what it's going to be in Concacaf World Cup qualifying, and that's fine. I think this was everything you want from a performance, which was to show that they have different ways to beat teams in this region, but it's always kind of going to be a dogfight. It's not going to be easy, and whatever peak thing that Greg Berhalter can create will probably, if we're in Qatar, because that's just not the nature of the way these games work out. You have a short amount of time. You're getting a group together, a lot of guys who have either never played together or haven't in a while. You're playing against opponents who are putting their, complete heart out there to try and stop everything you do. But I think that this was the next step for this team, to have a commanding performance in a World Cup qualifier, to carry the game but not look frantic or nervous that the goal was never going to come. And I think you saw all of that. Again, I thought Greg Berhalter, a couple tweaks at halftime, which is exciting to see. And one of the reasons I was excited about Berhalter being coach was national teams, you don't control everything. You don't have transfers. You can't bring whatever you want in. And I thought what we saw from Greg Berhalter in MLS and he's brought over to the U.S. is he has clear philosophies and ideas, but he's not dogmatic in understanding how he can win soccer games. And so I think you continue to see him develop along with this group. So I thought that there was a lot I liked out of this performance. And Walker Zimmerman, another one where 4 months ago, we thought we had no center backs. Who was going to step up? Now you could debate who should start. And that's a luxury that I didn't think we would have at this point with this pool of players. So there was a lot that I was excited about, a lot that I loved, mainly just Timothy Weah. I love Weah. I'm like all in. I don't care what position. I don't care at what time. I'm just a Weah guy. Everyone knows that.
I like that anybody who came in, it felt like they understood immediately what their role was. And that goes back to simplification on your part, Doyle, and getting into formation, into a sort of a tactical identity that everybody could just say, okay, I get it. I got that. When I'm there, okay, this is the run I'm making. Here's who's overlapping. Here's why I'm doing that. Here's who's benefiting from it. And I think we're going to look back, and it's just kind of an obvious point on that halftime in Honduras as the sort of like switch point for this group of players. And Tyler Adams talked about it, and a bunch of guys did, about what they said, about what it meant to them, about sort of what you just said, Dave, in the dogfight sense of, hey, wait a minute, we're more talented, we're deeper. If we just fight, if we just do this together, and we have a central idea that we're behind, and oh, by the way, Ricardo Pepi is just absolutely lethal in the 18-yard box, we're going to win a lot of games, and we're going to finish either atop this thing or even with Mexico. And that's where it seems like they're on track to go. Now, there's so much work to be done from here, but 4 games out of 14, we're more than a third of the way through at this point, or almost a third of the way. The next game will be, my math struggles.
Weebe's been huffing poppers in that.
Yeah, the gunpowder is throwing me off in here. But I like that they just sort of decided, like, this is us.
Yeah,
this is the identity that we need to embrace, and that Greg has really just put them in positions to make it as easy as possible to embrace that and to come together as a group and push toward it.
Finally is the end of that sentiment, because this team over the past 2 years has struggled to create chances, and that's what's kind of mind blowing to me. To contextualize it, when Dave said they're not Greg Berhalter's Columbus Crew, what the Columbus Crew were known for under Greg Berhalter was their ability to generate like high quality chances in the box for the center forward. Jossie Zardes, Ola Kamara, Kai Kamara, all of these guys had career years playing for Greg Berhalter. And we just have not seen a lot of that with the U.S. national team. And while part of that is intricate combination and build-up play, it's tough to get to intricate combination and build-up play if you're complicating everything else at the same time. So that's why I think going to a 4-3-3 with everybody in spots where they kind of just naturally do what you want out of a 4-3-3 felt so good. And then it clicked in the second half tonight. Pepe had 2 one-touch finishes in the box. Jossie had 2 sitters. Well, sitters is rough, but like 2 chances in the box, a third he couldn't quite get to. Like, if you're generating 5 chances of that quality for your center forward from open play in 45 minutes, then things have gone right. Things have clicked into place. And some of that is personnel, but some of that was Berhalter, I think, getting back to his roots a little bit. And again, instead of like, Serginho Dest inverted on the left, and Tyler's going to play as a right wing back and is going to press out of a 5-2-3. Instead of all that, it was just going back to like, we're the far superior team on talent. We're going to roll them out there, and we're going to trust that talent to execute. And again, that is the biggest takeaway for me. I think it should be the biggest takeaway, even bigger than Ricardo Pepi having 3 goals in 2 games, is the fact that we are back to trusting our players to execute, and they're out there executing.
Joseph Martinez and Carlos Vela should be thankful that Ricardo Pepi never played for Greg Berhalter's Columbus Crew, because he would have scored 97 goals in one regular season.
Yeah, that's
okay. I'm kind of disappointed because I don't know what minute we're into the show. But what do we do? Like, this is the first time we're going into the Pepi thing? What's going on
Trend
for this show?
Old news, man. Old news.
Restrained performance by Andrew Wiebe tonight.
Let's just.
I know
that we have a lot to say about it, but it still blows my mind. And it's not that I'm shocked that Ricardo Pepi's capable of this.
He was the second best. He was the second best teenager on the field tonight. How about that?
Because Musa was the best?
Yes.
Fair. But we've all been around this for a really long time. And Calen will tell you better than any of us, when academies finally were created, and every once in a while, someone, maybe not Michael Bradley, with Bob bringing him into practice, but every once in a while, an academy kid would come train with the first team. And, the Red Bulls signed Josie Altidore, and we pretended it was an academy thing. And all this stuff has happened. But to watch come through the pipeline and be this good. And what's exciting for me is now it's like, well, I thought he was that good. So now I'm like, all holds bar. Everything's gone on every one of my 22 under 22 list. You better believe they are all FIFA top 150 players of all time. Because now I am sure
what
of everything
field in
I've
Frisco
ever said.
was the first Pepi sighting for you, Dave?
Bro. I think it wasn't field 14. That's like the Azteca of Toyota Soccer Center. But it was somewhere further. I'll probably field 18 or something like that. But it's incredible to watch. And it's awesome that it happened. And we're seeing a ton of it. And it's not just with the US, right? It's with Canada as well. And what Jonathan Osorio did, and Mark Anthony Kaye and Kamal Miller, and what all these guys have been able to come from and create. But it's exciting that all of this works. And as I've said a bunch of times, I don't think it's a golden generation. I think it's the start of what is the future. And Ricardo Pepi could not be a better person to be the representation of this to everyone. Because I think Reyna's out there, and everyone understands his background. But for a lot of people that don't follow all of the things we follow, they only tune in for World Cup and the big national team game they're told to tune in for. And in a month, they're going to tune in for USA versus Mexico at the FC Cincinnati's gorgeous new stadium. And Ricardo Pepi is going to be the star that everyone's through about, and that everyone's going to say, where'd this guy come from? And he is the representation, I think, of this entire pathway and all these things. And he is the best dude in the world.
The YouTube chat is having fun with this, Calen. They're doing what we should have probably done here. They have Ricardinho Pepi rolling around in there. Lionel Pepi keeps some coal into the firebox here, Calen. We've talked over and over, like, oh, what about this guy when he came into training with the Dynamo or wherever it might be? And you're like, yeah, he was really good, and then
get memo a call up,
gone. Like, what does this represent to you? It's a guy that moves to Dallas at 13, leaves his family. The feature stories that have gone around this week are just absolutely incredible. The sacrifice that he made, that his parents made to make this dream possible, and for them to live it out is just inspiring. I was waiting during the whole broadcast. Give me Daniel and Annette. Like, I need to see his parents experience this moment. Like, I want to see how they – I want to see the emotions coursing through them because they have to be huge, almost unmanageable for a parent. I mean, if we're excited, what are they? This is an 18-year-old kid. He moves to Dallas. He goes through. He's League One. He scores goals there. He gets the first team, and he just immediately goes like –
This is the face of a proud parent.
Got you. My bad. Yeah, my bad.
Where
are the tears? Where are the tears?
This is what it was.
Tears?
Goss was bringing the orange slices and
everyone knows that.
Out at exactly.
Yeah. Call Oscar. He'll tell you.
No, it really is an incredible story, and I think in some ways, it was really cool that it happened in Texas today as well. Not just that his parents were there,
because he's the governor. Because Ricardo Pepi's the governor.
Somebody please update the wiki. We're ready for that. But I think we've seen in the past too. Just like Clint's from Nacogdoches. There is so much talent in this country that is in potentially overlooked, underrepresented areas that are not necessarily next door to an ODP tryout camp or an MLS academy or whatever it is. And I think we're just beginning to scratch the surface as far as, going to these players, where Clint's story was he had to have his parents drive him 3 or 4 hours to get to practice every day. And this was a little bit of a different story where FC Dallas had this affiliate program in El Paso that helped kind of like find players like this and then bring them to the academy where he left home at 13 years old. And when I mentioned this story, the word earlier, talking about maturity, I was a little bit concerned, honestly, just kind of like rooting for Pepe and knowing him to say, oh man, there was a lot of hype. He came in the last camp. He did so well. He sort of bided his time. We were kind of calling for him to get moments because we were just so desperate for a number 9, and then he comes in and delivers beyond your wildest dreams in the second half in such an important game. But now it's a little bit different, beginning as a starter, just mentality wise, expectation wise. Can you repeat that? And in the first half, he wasn't getting on the ball, but he stayed the course. He was very mature, and when his moments came, he had 2 chances and he scored 2 goals. And if he would have stayed on, I think Eddie Johnson was on Twitter being like, I love Greg, but leave him on, which I love. By the way, I loved from Eddie because I know he would have been pissed to be taken off. But I just felt like, like if you gave him those chances, Jossie had no shade at Jossie. The way that Pepe was flowing, he probably would have had a third too, and we would have been talking about a hat trick. But it feels like there's so much in there, and it's still just the beginning for Pepe. And I feel like for the U.S. men's national team to discover a clear number 9 that is just at the beginning of this journey and scratching the surface of his own potential. But he seems to know who he is. He seems to know, even when he mentions the players he looks up to, the style of play that he wants to play, and the way that the other players were talking about him. I heard Brendan Aronson talking in the postgame presser, the guys talking about just his finishing and confidence around the box. He really is sort of wise beyond his years. Still early days, but I'm ready to, beyond just kind of like the hype train and all that, I really feel like it's not just hype. Like there's real substance there. And I think because of the person he is, he's ready to take on a little bit more and shoulder some of this burden amongst a young team too, which I think really suits him. I think the fact that he's walking into a team that is kind of looking for a number 9 and looking for someone to grab the reins and give that confidence to the team. I think he's going to give more confidence to Brendan Aronson. He's going to give more confidence to Christian Pulisic when he comes back. He's going to give more confidence to guys knowing that if we generate a couple good chances, chances are Pepe's going to put one away.
Yeah, we have a lot of people in the YouTube chat right now going a little bit crazy right now. They're all talking transfer fees.
So here's the thing about this transfer that's probably coming up for him, and we're all excited about it, and FC Dallas is excited about it.
Certainly Pepe is. He's talking about it. He's not holding back.
People pay for goals. It's really hard to score goals, and everything that we've created so far in Alphonso Davies' success, at Bayern and the players that have been sold over the last transfer window and Busio and Sam Vines and all this stuff. Pepe does something else, and that's the thing that costs a lot of money. So it's not unreasonable to think that it'll be a record transfer, and even if it's not, sounds like it's going to be one of those in-between clubs where there'll be a going forward and all those things, but that's the reason he's valued at this number is everyone pays for goals. And right now at 18, he scores a lot of them.
I mean,
he's done it at every level. That's the other thing about him. He was a star, field 14 in Frisco, with the youth teams and the academy teams for Dallas. And then, he was a star because he scored goals. And then he moved up to North Texas in USL, and he was a star there because he scored goals. And I
think he scored a direct 30-yard free kick in the final of the USL League One. He scored it.
Yeah, he scored it, and it was like, and that was
he doesn't even take free kicks.
Yeah, but he scored goals there, and he moved to MLS, and he scored goals in MLS, and now he's moved up to the U.S. national team. I just hope that if and when this transfer does happen this winter, that he ends up in a place where he's playing, because I would rather see him go to a smaller club or a big club in a smaller league than try to jump directly to a Bayern Munich or Inter Milan or a Chelsea or something like that. He's got to play because like he looks very much like he should be the number one U.S. center forward at the World Cup. And if we get to the World Cup and he's only played 500 minutes in assorted league cups over the course of 2022, we're not going to be in good shape. So, and I desperately hope that he is keeping that in mind and seeing what going to a place where you get minutes immediately has done for the likes of Brendan Aronson or Tyler Adams. And what going to a place where you sit on the bench or you don't get to play your preferred position ended up doing for Josh Sargent. So
I hear that, but at the same time,
get paid.
Were we also saying the same thing about Alphonso Davies?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
It took him a little while. It took Alphonso Davies 10 months to be a starter.
Yeah,
listen to me.
Then he's the Champions League starter.
Yeah, great. So Ricardo Pepi goes in January, and he plays 200 minutes between January and October. He's not making the World Cup team. It doesn't matter if he goes to Juventus or Real Madrid or Bayern Munich. If he only plays 200 minutes between January and October, which is what happened to Alphonso Davies when he first moved to Bayern Munich, then he is not going to make the World Cup.
But Alphonso Davies was still a starter for Canada. And if Pepe's on a 1.5 goals per game average for the U.S. that whole time, maybe he still stays in the national team.
I think it's a tricky one because people said the same thing about Weston going to Juve and saying, oh, it's maybe too big of a club for him.
But he was 21, 22, or 22, 23 years old.
And I do think there is a value to that point of going to a Schalke or going to a club where you feel like you can play, get goals, get minutes, and then you get that next big step. But I think it's also hard, and even from the club's perspective, it's hard to turn down the relationships that are there. It's hard to turn down the transfer fee numbers. It's hard to turn down the cachet of selling to a club like that. So it is a tricky one. And I also don't think
sell to Ajax. Sell to Ajax. Ajax is.
I also don't think that it's
transfer on a 9.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also think with his skill set, scoring goals, the better players you put him around, the better he's going to do. He's not asked to make the game; he's asked to finish it. And if you have world-class players around him, and you're asking him to do exactly the same things that Berhalter's asking him to do, or exactly the same things, or even less things than FC Dallas is asking him to do, I think you might see even more returns from Pepe. So I think that's, to Goss's point, why that transfer fee is going to be high, is he does the part that is the most valuable, the hardest part. And he's in flow right now. So for the U.S., I mean, we came in, I think just reflecting back to look back on everything, and to say, okay, well, we're a little bit unsure about these positions, but number 9 was really the biggest question. And it's not to say that it's his like forever and it's never going to be in question or anything like that. But boy, it looks like he is peaking at the right time. The potential is there, and it feels like there's more behind the curtain.
And it's not, and to your point of like, it's not his forever, whatever. We have an answer for the first time. Maybe outside of Giassi, when he's been healthy and it's been, when he's been fit, it was before really a lot of these young guys came through, and then he's had injuries and COVID, so you've had camps here and there, whatever. And we thought Josh Sargent could be the guy. We thought maybe Jordy Pifak could be the guy. We've had all these conversations. All of it's been theoretical. This is the first time in the entire time that we've had Greg Berhalter where we've had this group of players together that we've seen someone be successful. Will he every single game for the rest of his USMNT career? No. But we have a moment, at least in time, that you can look back on later on and say, well, this is why you want Pepe, because he was able to score goals when we were able to build the game this way. Whatever it is, we finally have, to some extent, some success, and that's pretty exciting.
Before we move on, only thing I want Chuck D to take him under the wing and get a signature celebration. That's the only thing we need. That's the only criticism I can make.
Texas related.
We got to do something.
You saw Clint Dempsey on Twitter. Goals. Nobody was enjoying this performance more than Clint Dempsey.
Was he?
Texas boys stand up. He said, look, the one thing I would say about the transfer is that we're at a place in MLS's lifespan, as well as, honestly, U.S. soccer's lifespan, where there are instances and examples that Ricardo Pepi can look at and compare. Whereas I remember 10, 15 years ago when we were all talking about this, you're like, oh, my God, like, so-and-so could get to Hertha Berlin. Like, go to Hertha. Like, get to Hertha. Nobody even knew what that meant.
Kenny Cooper at 1860.
You didn't have Americans. You didn't have Americans really in the positions that they're in now, having the transfers they're in now. Sometimes having the tribulations from a transfer perspective that they have now. You have examples within this team for Ricardo Pepi to look at. You have people for Ricardo Pepi, if he wants to talk to. You have a club in Dallas who's done this more than once, which, honestly, for a lot of MLS clubs, you can't say. So I just think that I hope that there's more institutional knowledge. And as you have sort of said and laid out, Doyle, there's more of a big picture idea of what this transfer is going to mean for him, both now, but in 6 months, in a year, in 2 years, in 5 years, to plot this out in a better way. He seems extremely mature. He's had to have been. He left his home at 13 years of age. Now, the flip side is he still lives with his parents. They moved to Dallas. So whatever happens is going to be a massive life change for Ricardo Pepi, but he just sort of seems like that dude, Like we all know the one, the friend that has all this success, but is just sort of like, huh, like all right, yeah, like cool, like
Brandon Aronson's kind of the same way. Actually,
yeah, it's like oh yeah, that's what I've kind of figured. Figured I'd do that. Like
Brendan's just trying to go up to the shore whenever he gets free time.
Exactly.
Up the shore? Yeah, I probably said that wrong.
Yeah, however you say it, whatever. I mean, look, this is a story that's going to go on for a long time in our world, and it's a wonderful one now from a human interest perspective, from a soccer perspective, and certainly for U.S. national team fans who are seeing a guy just absolutely explode onto our stage. Give me another name out there, Doyle, that impressed you. Who's the Ricardo? Okay. Wax poetic.
So one of the things that we've been banging the drum on for a while is the lack of ball progression out of central midfield. Some of the guys can do it. Weston McKinney can do it, but he's turnover prone when he gets on the ball and really tries to push. Sebastian Lletget can do it, but kind of slowly. And he's not always as confident on the turn as you would like to see from him. Yunus Musah is, just in terms of his gifts with the ball, is at a different level than those guys in terms of ball security and the ability to push it forward and compromise the shape of the entire opposing defense. Make the defense react to him and then hit the pass that unlocks the sequence of play. And that's what happened on the first goal. It took the kid 45 minutes to kind of figure it out. He drifted through the first half. But that's not unexpected at all. He came right out in the second half and was very clearly, he and McKinney both were all about getting on the ball and going at Jamaica and forcing them to make a play. And 3 minutes into the half, Jamaica couldn't make the play. I'm not sure that goal happens if it's a different player getting on the ball in that spot. Maybe it did because Turner's distribution was early there, and Jamaica were never allowed to get set. But like credit to Serginho Dest and to Musa for recognizing that and never letting up. He's probably my favorite player in the pool, just in terms of overall skill set, because of that. The ability to win the ball, the ability to be secure on the ball, and the ability to force the defense to react to him. There's not a lot of guys in our pool who have that. And I think he elevates what this team is capable of. And that is a lot of praise for someone who has exactly one official, competition cap under his belt. But I think it's going to end up looking correct.
And credit to Greg Berhalter as well on that, because Musa plays mostly for his club out wide. Mm-hmm. And I think Greg sees his talents and his ability more as a central player for the U.S. men's national team. And I think when you look at the way that our other central players play, Tyler's all action everywhere, winning the ball. But often at times he steps and wins the ball and is able to then distribute. But I wouldn't say he's so much of a guy that's going to, once he has possession of the ball, to drive at the heart of the defense and then dish from there. And I think even from Weston, he tends to find a little bit more joy when he creates overloads and goes out wide. And he's able to kind of get into those sort of side spaces, play with the fullback, combine and move, and then make a late arriving run in the box. I think what we saw from Musa and have seen from him in the past, which is why I think we were so excited about him. And honestly, we thought this moment would have come earlier in the Nations League, which sort of unexplainedly, we really don't have a great reason as to why that didn't happen, but had been waiting. And I think today was the first night that he was cap tied finally. And you see a little bit of that difference as far as just that comfort to be able to drive direct at the heart of somebody. And he has, not to trigger anybody, but he's kind of got that ball security of a Nagbe situation, but kind of also where we wanted Nagbe, or where people were just sort of, when they love Nagbe, and that intoxicating part is when he is direct, it's just so dangerous because it's a lot of side to side. But just a little bit of that directness where what's there, the ability to finish the action or to draw defenders and then lay it off. Nagbe can do that. And I think Musa is probably the closest thing I've seen to that, but he's only 18 years old. And that's the part where you're saying, okay. And by the way, I think Nagbe had that at 18 as well. It just goes to a little bit of the difference in, there are two stories and player development pipelines and all these other complex factors, but we only really sort of saw that Nagbe maybe a little bit later on. But I think in the case of Musa, he showed some of that difference where you're really looking for somebody to, you could just sort of drool at the idea of him drawing defenders, and he really honestly unlocked Serginho Dest in a way. And we've been asking, when is Dest going to make an impact or work? But the way he was able to set up Dest there just made it a little bit easier for him, because Dest can then commit and really go into the attack because somebody can progress the ball. So I think it was just a little bit of a window of what he can bring to the team. So I was him, McKinney, and Adams, and then you think about Acosta coming off the bench, and we may see Legit. Yeah, we may see Legit. Really we may see Busio. There's a lot of options there. But I think seeing Musa with that first team and getting the trust of Berhalter tonight, I think was telling to see from the start against Jamaica, World Cup qualifier. That was big, and he lived up to it.
That three seems really complimentary, all with very sort of roles that really progress the ball in the right ways. On the defensive side, can all kind of, help each other in situations. You have a set piece monster in McKinney. You have Musa, and the thing about Musa sort of reminds me of Calen Carr men's league, man. Deceleration, acceleration. It's a lot like Nagbe. Nagbe was a great comparison, but Calen and men's league, I remember, used to just set people up where you're like, I'm not really running hard right now. And they're like, oh, I'm with him. Musa does that all the time. Yeah, just because I'm trying to blow you up, bro. I just want to blow you up a little bit. But it's Musa will slow down so that when he speeds up, he has 3 extra steps than he did before. His just confidence and ability and possession of the ball is
just to really live into this. I think I'm much more of a Serginho Dest in Men's League.
Oh, okay. All right. You could have been a Serginho Dest.
So many useless stuff.
They held you back.
I'm not tracking back. No chance.
Hey, credit to Serginho tonight. Serginho only had one bad defensive moment tonight. It was right after kickoff, after the second U.S. goal. But that was the only bad defensive moment he had. I thought this was like it's weird because it was kind of a quiet game from him, but I was okay with that.
Back post defensive header. Yeah.
Back post defensive header. His crossing wasn't great other than the goal, but that's okay. I thought it was just like a pretty professional performance from him. I thought it was a pretty professional performance from Anthony Robinson on the other side. Again, they weren't executing at the level that you'd like to see from them in terms of the final ball, especially in that first half. But that's okay. To me, it's about looking natural out there and getting into the right spots and doing the work you need to do to track back defensively to make sure that the whole thing doesn't break down. So that was really encouraging as well.
This was a good game for Dest, and the right type of game where we were going to dominate the ball. We were going to be able to get forward in the attack, and he was able to express himself without really major risks. And I think you have to give a little bit of a hat tip to Zimmerman as well, because we have seen other center backs really get called out and like not be able to cover for him. And I think for the most part, him and Robinson did a good job there. But I think Dest at home, I feel good about Dest. I think those are really good where you're going to have the ball. He's going to draw fouls. He can express himself. He seemed to grow a little bit into the game. I still have major questions about him going on the road and in environments where you're not going to get a call potentially, or you're going to have a little bit more of a difficult match. I think there's still big questions around that. But I think for these types of matches, you can see what he can bring to a team when things are like set up well for him.
I assume it'll be DeAndre Yedlin starting.
Yeah, we have like 5,
especially with the injury. Yeah,
feel confident.
Or he seemed to struggle at the end.
Dave, give me another name. There's plenty of guys we haven't name dropped here or checked. There's a couple that are floating in my mind. I'm wondering if you would go that way.
Have we talked about Paul Arriola?
We haven't.
already do Paul Arriola? Can I bring up Paul Arriola?
That was the alley-oop. You just, reverse jam, baby. Let's go. The garden goes crazy.
Camba. Yeah, man. The big thing with Paul Arriola is just long-term for him to come back from the injuries every single time and to get hurt with the U.S. men's national team. And he was kind of one of the bright spots early on in Greg Berhalter's time when there wasn't a whole lot of them outside of maybe Tyler Adams. So for him to come through all of that, and you talked about it, I think, Doyle, with Canada, about the players in the pool who have been through the tough times. Pulisic was the only player that was at the qualifier in Couva, and I think Arriola has been through a lot of it now since then, of the Dave Sarakin days and everything else.
Arriola started in Couva. So he
started in Couva?
Yeah, he started. He and Nagby were the sides of the diamond.
I was going to say Nagby definitely started that. I know.
Yeah.
In that whole conversation that we had about
Arriola's been there, man. He's been at the bottom.
And so for him to come through and come back out, and he gets to play at Q2, this phenomenal stadium, this great atmosphere, and a game like this, and then the things you're going to get from him at this point, right? He's always going to work hard. He's always going to track his runner. He's phenomenal when there's good players around him to connect, and his ability to press and just make life miserable for whoever he's standing near or standing around. There was a couple of moments where it was like he was the only one counter pressing, and he caused a deflection, I think, twice for the U.S. to win the ball back. And so you get all of that from him. And then with this group, I think when you talk about Dest and a high-level player on the ball at right back, and Musa, who's kind of shaded over to his right side, with all this quality, he seems so comfortable just being a guy who knows how to either pull defenders out of place or just a quick touch. There was one moment where Musa picks up the ball and Arriola's at like midfield with his back to goal, and it's a perfect layoff back into Musa's path for him to run forward and take it on. And this seems to be Paul Arriola at his best. And I think Greg Berhalter knew that this was possible and has trust in him, that he's stuck with him, but also kind of was waiting for these other pieces to fall around it for Arriola to be this guy. And I think he's a player that you will trust in any moment. You can play him in a game like this, where you have more possession in your home and you expect to win, and you know you can play him at the Azteca. You know you can play him away at Panama. And so he is this luxury and this safety blanket that Greg Berhalter has, and it was fun to watch him do his thing.
And I will say that the whole front line deserves a lot of credit. One of the things I wrote about in my pregame, my look ahead, was that Jamaica generates a lot of chances just off of good clearances. Like when they clear the ball, they're not blindly hoofing it upfield. They actually do it with a purpose because they have so many attackers who can just be a one-man counterattack. And the key is obviously having, a Miles Robinson type center back is very good. But the key is to make sure your front line gets pressure quick enough to the Jamaican back line so those clearances that they're hitting out are not directed anywhere. They're just blind and they're just hopeful. And if you look at the job that Arriola, Pepe, and Brendan Aronson all did in terms of shutting those down, Jamaica didn't have, I don't think, a single dangerous counterattack until second half stoppage time. And that type of work goes, frankly, it goes underappreciated in the fan base. But I don't think it goes underappreciated in the locker room. I would imagine that if you ask the guys on the team what they thought of Paul Arriola's performance tonight, they would be pretty effusive, because everything from possibly earning what should have been a red card inside of 25 seconds. He had the through ball to Aronson that could have been the second red card. Those deflections that you guys were talking about, but mostly just making it so that Jamaica had no chance to build through Kamar Lawrence. Kamar Lawrence is one of their best players, and he's a safety valve for them when they're trying to get forward. And Arriola just almost completely took him out of the game.
Have you seen the passing matrix? It's a black hole.
Yeah.
It's a nothing.
There's no left. There was no
There's
left
nothing.
side for Jamaica tonight, and it's not just the work that Paul Arriola did, but you put him out there specifically to get that result, to destroy the opposing teams, the ability of the opposing team to build through that left side.
Yeah, he just creates misery. The play that stands out to me with him, and there's so many good ones, is him just literally wrecking ball through two Jamaican players and just jumping up and keeping going. That's Paul Arriola in a nutshell. Really happy for him because he had a really poorly timed injury. He had a terrible time at Swansea. We talked to him on the show about it. It felt like a little bit of a make or break time in his life, and he's bounced back from those. So congratulations to him. Can we talk though about the refereeing? Look, I thought that maybe that second one that everybody's yelling about was a good tackle. To be honest, I thought that was actually a really, really well-timed tackle. Wow. But once you call it a foul, that is dog. So the other one, I was a little more okay with the yellow card. But what the hell, Concacaf? You got to have VAR. There's two sides of this. I was scared about VAR when they said they were going to have it because I thought they weren't going to execute it very well. But when you don't have it and everybody's used to it, you have Maxime Crépeau in that Canada game bear hugging people. That is probably a penalty. We're praising Canada, but that is probably a penalty.
Chucky tried to knock the ball out of his hands.
Yeah.
Come on. You're gonna round this whole CONCACAF round out, and you're gonna come at Maxime Crépeau.
I knew you were gonna turn this into instant replay. I knew you were gonna do this.
It is I think it is. I think it's a mistake for them not to have it.
But here's one of the factors.
The first one was a red card. And I think the referee, this was his first World Cup qualifier. And I think he showed a lack of, to me, he showed a lack of decisiveness as far in both of his decisions. I thought there was no sort of clear indication right away as to what the call was. And he seemed to actually wait to go to the sideline referee, I think in both cases, to check to see which card he should pull out.
What should I do?
Yeah, it was
it
was like a phone a friend situation because there was no VAR. And I don't know if he's refereed mostly with VAR, referees are getting used to that or not, but he didn't seem to have
I would doubt it.
The certainty in that moment to make a clear decision, which I think did not inspire confidence. I thought personally the first one was a red card based on Areola, where he was his pace going straight in on goal. But I understand that in the beginning of the match, that's a very difficult decision to make. Although I think it should have been a red. I thought the second one was a good tackle, actually. In real time, I thought it was a good tackle. And in the replay in slow motion, I thought I saw enough of the ball to stay with my original decision. Now, in the case of the referee, if you're going to call that, it's got to be a red because it's just outside the box. It's clear that he's going in to be in on goal.
Say his next touch is a shot.
You know it's a shot. And it's
So the only thing is his next touch is his first touch.
Probably okay, look, the way Aronson's running, he's probably going to settle with one with the right foot.
No, but the only thing I'm saying is he's not in possession yet.
That's fair.
You said his next touch. He has not actually touched the ball yet, and I don't know if that affects it at all. That's all I'm putting out there. I thought it was a red card. I thought it was a foul. I don't know why
we should do a World Cup qualifying instant replay with
but
Charlie.
Here's one thing though, and we've talked about this with CCL. So if you are a US fan or Canada, you're not going to get a US or Canadian ref. You can't. And then a lot of times if you don't get the ref from Liga MX, which is the most experienced ref in the region, the top referee right now is O'Shea Nation, who's Jamaican. So he also can't do this game. So as you start going through the list, you start to go down. And so Nation did the USA-Canada game. And I think, that one was fine. So it's just kind of one of those situations where you have to know going into a lot of these games that if you're not getting Drew Fisher or O'Shea Nation, you're kind of ready for the 95-minute instant replay postgame.
I hear Matt Doyle's ice clinking around in his cup. My feeling is that he would like to end this. Before I let you end this, though, Doyle, you have to tell me what you think that Greg Berhalter will do against Panama.
I think heavy squad rotation. I would expect Kellen Acosta to get the start at the 6. I think Leggett will be in there. I bet Weston McKinney starts again, though. I think Pepe and Aronson will both start. I think Weah probably starts up top. I'm not sure what he'll do with the center backs. I would hate to see Robinson and Zimmerman again. And then
it seems he's not going to start Chris Richards for the first time ever at Panama.
Yeah.
And it
McKenzie
seems
could
tough.
be an option.
And Mark McKenzie, but is it McKenzie and Zimmerman?
I mean,
McKenzie and Miles.
I can see Robinson.
I wouldn't hate either of those. That is the toughest one because I thought Richards was going to get tonight's game. I'm okay with him not, and I kind of trust that at this point I kind of trust that Berhalter will do the right thing. I also think that both fullbacks will be rotated. Like George Bello wasn't great last month, and he hasn't been great over the past month with Atlanta United, but he's played on the road in a Concacaf World Cup qualifier. He has started a Gold Cup final. He has played on the road multiple times in Concacaf Champions League.
Anthony Robinson came in with a knock too. I think he missed the midweek game for Fulham, so I think he got through this one well. But I think that's that's definitely a place you would look.
If you can give him, if you can give him a week. And the other thing is just in terms of game theory, the home games are always more important. So you want to get your best players rested and fit to go for the home game. So hopefully most of the first teamers get the game off.
I really hope that. I really do not want to see Dest. That's just my, I don't think, I think it's gotten to the point where you have to pick the best. A part of player selection is picking what players are best in what circumstance. And I think Dest has proven the home matches are a much better venue for him. And you got a good performance out of him tonight. And I do not think, and he seemed to tighten up at the end, but I would not think that on short rest going away is the right move for him.
No chance.
Especially with the depth you have at right back.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I don't know that there's an away game in CONCACAF I would play Sergio Destin anymore, and that's not really a knock on him. It's just the style of player he is.
And he's 20, by the way.
Yeah.
So it's
and I know I've said this. I think we've talked about this on the show for years of you should have a home and away group, and not everything's not completely solid, and there'll be parts, but there should be a clear delineation of what we need to win in this setting at Q2 Stadium in front of your crowd with the field watered exactly how you want it. Maybe not in the first half. Sounds like it was in the second half. Versus going away and having to deal with the things you have to deal with. I was a little surprised. Surprised, probably not the right word. I thought Greg Berhalter was going to try and sneak Richards in at right back for Dest as a sub. You're closing out a 2-0 win. It's not his position, but he's played it. I thought it would be an opportunity to get him a couple minutes just to get him out there.
You got to cut this madman off. This is just it's 1 a.m. and Gasman is talking about subbing in Chris Richards at right back. Oh my God.
There it is.
There's the final whistle, folks. That's it. A massive night for Extra Time and Continental Tire and the Concacaf World Cup Qualifiers. We will be back on Sunday, folks. If you're listening on podcast or you're up live, props to you live warriors. Well done. I hope you got a glass of brown with you. Otherwise, I hope you're enjoying your day. We'll be back on Sunday. U.S.-Panama. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. Enjoy 3 points for the U.S. Always fun. Ricardo Pepi forever. Choo-choo! Adios.